going to be more talking to myself. That's what it's going to feel like, right? Like I've been doing this all week.
Yep, we're live.
I'd like to call the North Branford Board of Education special virtual meeting to order on Wednesday, April 1st at 7:10. Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Okay, present.
Chairman Papa Holzer
I
here.
have the plaque for you.
Vice
Thank you,
Chairman
Vince.
Mora. Carolyn. Present.
Secretary Sienna,
Beth.
Here.
Janet Balsamo, Vincent Mace,
Vince.
Here.
Marcy Anafrio,
Marcy.
Cynthia Rice.
Cindy.
Can't hear Mary.
Okay, you got it?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to move to the North Branford High School renovation project. Rusty Malik is here.
Before we do, firstly, I'd like to recognize our board members for being as flexible as you've been to get to this point and for meeting on short notice to do this. I'd like to thank the town council as well and Mike Paulus for making this available so that we could go out live through Facebook. I think it would be only appropriate if we could just ask everyone just for a moment of silence with what we've been going through and the loss, not only in our state, but around the country and around the world for those who have passed as we continue this battle in honor of all of our healthcare workers, everyone involved with this. So just a quick moment of silence, please. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move on to the North Branford High School renovation project presentation. Rusty.
So we're going to segue in. Rusty Malik is here. As you know, not so long ago, we were at the middle school auditorium, and Rusty and his team from QA&M had a presentation and listened to questions and had a PowerPoint. He was charged with going back and refining his presentation. Since that time, we had a conference call with the State Department of Education, the Bureau for Facilities, and that was on the 25th of March. It was a very, I think, promising phone call, very constructive phone call, and it gave me a great deal of energy, and I know those who are in support of the project moving forward. So with that being said, he's here to go through a PowerPoint, answer any questions that you may have, and give new information related to that meeting on the 25th.
Okay, thank you, and good evening. So what I'm going to do is very quickly go from when we had that last presentation to the Town Council and Board of Education. During the question and answers period, there was a number of questions that came up. So what we did is we came up with some responses to those questions, and that'll be shown in the presentation. Along with that, we did have a meeting with the administrators and some of the teachers to just reflect on some of the comments once again in terms of the space and just have everybody look at the program and the space that has been presented.
I can hear music. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, hang on. We're trying to get the volume up so that you can hear them. Go ahead, Dad.
Is there any way to
Yeah,
focus
we're
on the
moving it.
PowerPoint?
Yes, we will.
Okay. I get it. I don't even know.
Well, you might be here in my house.
Okay.
I'm gonna have, how am I gonna do this?
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm going to go
Can
very
you hear
quick-
Rusty
Hear
now?
Rusty now?
Do a test.
Hello?
It's still
Test?
very like echo.
Do you want Rusty to come closer to the
Any
laptop?
better?
Rusty, if you slide a chair over here with your remote, sit right next to this laptop.
Then I'm on this mic as well. So I don't know if this mic is,
Can you,
Unplug those, I can bring it to the other side.
The other thing I could do is the sign on amendment does not.
I don't know.
we're trying to make this,
yes, right there.
The speakers are on my computer. Might be there.
It's like picking up just everything, it's just useless.
All right, what are you guys seeing on my screen right now?
Is that better there?
Yeah, I could hear it, but now I can't see it. At this field.
Cynthia, what are you seeing from my screen?
If you guys go to Facebook, you'll be able to see the PowerPoint really easily.
You can't hear it.
I can hear it, right.
I don't think they heard you, Sean.
If you go to Facebook, you'll be able to hear and see the presentation fairly easily.
Are they doing a presentation?
No, if you guys go to Facebook, you should be able to hear and see the presentation live. If not, can you hear me speaking to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so then, I believe you'll be able to hear Rusty. Can you see the screen in front?
The PowerPoint?
He doesn't have the
Do I
screen
just
on
go on
yet, but
FaceTime?
he's gonna
Just
show
the
the screen.
Can you see the screen through Zoom? Are you looking at the front screen by Shauna?
Yeah, but it's very small, you can't make it out.
Okay, so it will be up on PowerPoint, it will be up on Facebook in a minute, so Rusty's gonna go ahead and you should be able to hear him now.
Well, how do you go?
So I'm going to mute you guys. If you guys wanna to join in, can you use the chat feature? This way we won't have any feedback for any of you.
Sure.
Okay.
mute her.
Okay,
All right?
yes, I believe so.
So, as I mentioned, we did meet with the administrators and teachers a couple of weeks ago before we went to the state, just to review the floor plans. Actually, they came back with some really good feedback. One of the questions that was raised is that can they be a lecture room where maybe a grade level can be collected, and so the whole grade level meeting can be held, or a seminar. And so we took that under advisement, and we went back to the drawings and tried to do a couple of things. One, meet those criteria, and also try to make the building a little bit more efficient. So again, I'm going to just go right through these slides. These are the existing condition slides. We talked about all the concerns that were expressed in the existing building evaluation. The fact that NEASC had mentioned, that the facilities are really part of the key aspects of what needs to be corrected in the school system. The program components are here. This is where we really looked hard at how can we save some square footage. We were at about 110,000 square foot at this point. And so, and then of course, we went back and looked at the three options. So these are the three options: maintaining the existing facility, renovating as new, and the new high school. So quickly going through that, once again, enrollment projections, 524 in the 2019-20 year. Now, one thing that you'll see that has changed is if you look up at the top, it talks about the reimbursement rate. We had gone by the 2017, 2018 reimbursement rates. The Board of Education used to publish them, and then we couldn't get any of the newer rates. So at our meeting on the 25th with the state, they actually told us that they are now beginning to actually develop the rates there at OSCGR, and that from now on, it's not posted, and so we have to go to them. So this is very good news, because we were at 51.07, and they said that we should use the rate of 53.93. So that gave us a boost right away, which is a very positive thing. So what you'll see is that a lot of the numbers have changed, but to our favor in terms of the reimbursement going up. So we went through the enrollment. We actually then, on the 25th, we went to this, we didn't go there, we had a virtual meeting. We'd actually sent them the presentation, and we walked them through the presentation. We talked about the maintain option or the minimum renovation option. Right away, they came back and they said they didn't not like that option, would not support it. And in fact, I've had subsequent conversations with the state offices, and all the reviewers said that they do not recommend this option. So this was option one. As you recall, it was really additions and renovations on a minimal basis, but bringing the entire building up to code. And once again, the hard costs and the soft costs, this project, these numbers haven't changed from the last time we presented. The one number that did change is the estimated state reimbursement based on the increased state reimbursement numbers that were given to us. So the numbers went down slightly in this particular option. But bottom line is, again, this is something that the state said, the three plan reviewers and architects said they would not be supporting. And Costas, who is also the director, was on the call, and he weighed in with them, and he agreed that that's not an option that will be acceptable.
Okay.
Then we looked at option two, which is the renovate is new. There were a lot of questions back and forth about the viability of this option, how disruptive would it be, and how the education, the impact on education. At the end of the day, we went through the details on it, and they said, well, this tends to be the most expensive option. And then from the state's perspective, they felt that it's really not the best option for this particular project. Once again, we explained to them how the building would be demolished and how the media center would be built, and they understood the challenges of the site. And why we were doing what we were doing in terms of filling in part of the courtyard, putting additions and renovations in place. But they said they weren't crazy about this approach either. They felt that it was going to take too long, that a lot of money would be put into things that we've talked about, in temporary facilities, and temporary mechanical systems and so on. And they felt that there was not a judicious way to spend the money, both the town's money and the state's money. And once again, it's the most expensive option. It was at $61,841,000. The reimbursement was a little bit higher. They did mention to me afterwards that that there are other aspects of the project that they would look at it a little bit more critically in terms of the ineligible costs, and that even though it's a renovate as new option, that those ineligible costs could go up. So they just gave us a little bit of warning. For right now, we're still at a net cost of $36,542. It's a longer duration for construction, a lot of longer disruption. So whereas they didn't oppose it outright, they didn't really support it. They said that they would rather look at, when we went and said, let's look at the next option, which is the new building option. Overall, they looked at it both from a program point of view, from a circulation point of view. We had a lot of discussion about the program space, and one of the concerns that we had is the auditorium and how they would look at the auditorium. Our calculations are based on the high school building, and if we were told that we had to add the auditorium square footage into the overall building square footage, the impact on our reimbursement rate would be fairly significant. So they looked at it, they said, look, it's connected to the middle school, they're gonna look at it as part of the middle school project, which is really a fairly significant savings to us, because with that in mind, our numbers are, the numbers that we presented before are good. I mean, that was one of our concerns, because otherwise, they'd be about somewhere around 15 to 17,000 square feet added to the building square footage, which would affect the reimbursement fairly adversely. So they supported that. They liked the layout. They, we went through the details of the floor plans with them. And that discussion has actually gone on. I spent quite a bit of time with Michelle and Barbara on the phone yesterday, and got a lengthy email from Michelle actually just before I was leaving for this meeting with a number of questions. And I'll get into some more details. But the floor plan is, what we have done is we've tried to make the floor plan more efficient. So I'll just point out some of the highlights. One of the things that we took to heart is, okay, how do we create a lecture hall? So what you'll see is this is the main entrance coming in. And this, we had fitness here at the iteration that I think we presented. And so what we've done is we've created a lecture hall here. And I've got some images of how this will work. Actually, it's sort of, it's a lecture hall, but it's also a space that can be used by small groups. It's also a place where kids can just congregate. And it's also a means of circulation because these steps go to the second level. So it functions in multiple ways. Beyond that, we just reconfigured some of the spaces. In our effort to consolidate square footage, we did move the Project Lead the Way and robotics lab to the second level, just because we're trying to consolidate and make the building more efficient in square footage. So that's really the main change from the last plan that we presented. What we were able to do is we went from 110,000 square feet to 107,600. So we actually reduced 2,400 square feet of building, which you'll see has a direct impact on just the cost of the building, because we've taken that much square footage out of the building. One of the comments that we did get from the state is, as you're aware, the reimbursable square footage is 97,726 square feet. So we exceed that. We exceeded it and that's net. So our net was 106,000 in the old version. It's now closer to 104,000. So they encouraged us to go to the to reduce the square footage as much as we can, and that's part of the discussion that we've been having in the last 2 days. Has a lot to do with square footage and how do we make this building more efficient. They're really questioning the fact that do we need to have all these program spaces in this particular building, and that's a dialogue that Scott and everybody, all the administrators and I need to have before I respond to this last email that we just received. The plan overall, again, the layout is fairly significant. We've just moved a few spaces around, and so this lecture hall, which is a 2-story space, it's accessed from the second floor as well as the main level. So that's again the main change in the layout of the space. And as I mentioned earlier on, we moved Project Lead the Way up on that second level across from graphics and art and in the darkroom and so on, and photography. So that's really the most significant in terms of changes to the design of the project. We looked at the energy, actually going to a net zero solution. The smaller the building gets, the more efficient it gets, the less energy is used, so we're getting more comfortable with the payback if we go to a net zero building in the 7 to 10 years. We'll get into more detail as the building design gets developed, but we think we may be able to improve on the 7 years as well. So this is the image of that lecture hall. As you come into the building, you enter right there, and this is the lecture hall. As you can see, you can either it just can be an area where in the morning it's just open. It can be a circulation point. Students can be sitting on this sitting area right here. There's also steps that go all the way up. And so that it just adds to the common space, which opens up into the cafeteria. It opens up into the gymnasium. So all these spaces really function off of this major open commons area, which is really this space right here. And let's see. All right, I think the image is taking a little while to get up on the screen.
Rusty, while Ned is waiting to move over, some of the conversation was around the connectivity of the auditorium to the new building and conversations looking at a walkway that was covered and the ability to potentially do solar on top of that.
Right, so I'm trying to see why this is not, okay. Is it? There it is. So here's another view. This is a view on this side, standing up on the upper level, looking down, and again, it's that same, so looking down into the lobby space. And then there's a folding partition that's right here that drops down. And so once that drops down, now the space becomes, now the space becomes really a lecture hall. So it can be used by one classroom, two classes, or whole grade level. And the design is really around a whole grade level. So the goal here is to become efficient, to make spaces that are flexible and can be used in multiple ways. So this is one of the main changes that we've incorporated into the design. There was also a lot of question about storage and how many, is there going to be cabinets in the classrooms, and the answer is yes. This is an example of what it's, sorry about that, of what a classroom could look like. And on the plans themselves, we also defined a lot more of these storage spaces. I forgot to mention that when the plans were up, but we can actually very quickly go back to that. What you'll notice is all these little S spaces with there. Those are shared storage spaces designed to be available to each department. So on a department level, so for instance, right here, you've got storage for math here, world language, English and social studies, business. So we've tried to incorporate separate small rooms as well as the cabinetry within the classrooms themselves. So moving on. So to address the question of can we have a covered walkway, and the answer is here. So this is one that's designed right here. It would actually extend the entire length to the road that crosses over between the auditorium. And this particular design is really one that says, okay, we'll use the top of this connector, this covered walkway, to incorporate solar panels on there as well. So it really is dual function. It's a dual function type of a covered walkway. It's about 300 feet from the exit of the building here down to the entrance at the auditorium. And this covers about 280, 275 linear feet of that walkway. You've seen the site plan before. Parent drop-off on this side, the dedicated bus loop here, lots of parking, and the main entrance being right here. This area right here is an outdoor sitting area, accessed off the cafeteria. It is secure. There are gates, and it's designed with gates. There's also a similar space on the opposite side of the building, outside the media center, as an outdoor classroom as well. One other question that came up also was whether we could have a gable roof or a sloping roof on the building. So we found it would be most appropriate on this front three-story section. So you can tell that right here we've got a sort of a gable end right there. So this entire roof is a sloping. In our case, what we're doing is a standing seam membrane roof. And then on top of that, we've created a screen. So what this is for are the mechanical units that would be on the roof. They would be in an enclosed, screened-in area. So those are two things that we added to the design. And what I've done is we've sort of isolated the costs on those items, just because I want to make sure that we have the base project, and then we'll have the costs for each of these enhancements to the project as well. So here's another view. Again, you can see that covered walkway on this side. You can see the gable roof right there, and those screens are hiding the mechanical equipment that's on the roof. This is a more complete view of the covered walkway as well. And then this is another, the west view. You can see that this is a standing seam roof, like right here, with a slope on it, and then screened-in mechanical systems. So when we looked at this particular project, we were at 60,000 plus on the cost of this building. Now, this particular option, with the reduction in square footage, as well as the increased reimbursement numbers that were given to us by the state, it dropped down. First of all, the cost dropped down to $59,977, and if we're able to make the building more efficient, that number will come down some more. So roughly, we took out about, as about 2,400 square feet, and we've reduced the price by about $1 million with that approach. And the net here, so now is $37,339,992 as the estimated net cost to the town. So as I mentioned, yes.
Does that 37 million include the enhancements or no?
No, so that's where at the bottom, so now what I'm going to point out here, so I did get a confirmation from the state on the fact that they won't consider the auditorium, so that's good. Also got a confirmation about the reimbursement rate. So if we now start looking at some of the enhancements, for instance, if we look at a net zero building, a net zero building adds about 1.35 million to the project, but the net cost is 421,500. What happens with a net building is there's also a 1% increase in reimbursement for a more efficient building. So that's why it's the number is a lot smaller. So if we were to say, let's go with a net zero building, we would add the 421.5 to this 37.3 number. Space standard waiver, that's the discussion we're having right now. They're pushing back quite a bit. They're saying, oh, we already gave you the whole auditorium as a, that you're not counting that. So we're going back and forth in terms of justifying why we should get more square footage and not be penalized. Right now, we're about 6,000 and change over the standards. And I want to emphasize that the standards are not educationally based. They're just an arbitrary standard for reimbursement. And so the fact that we're having a discussion, it started out as a very promising comment during our teleconference. Then I had a second conversation, and they said, no, we don't think you're going to be getting that. So I pushed them back on that, and now we're in dialogue. So I said, okay, even if we get part of it. So my goal is to at least get 50% of that offset. So if we were, we'd get maybe another $500,000-600,000 deducted from the net cost to the town.
Is there a way to pare the building down 6,000 square feet?
So 6,000 is a little tough, because you've got a lot of the career technology spaces that are much larger spaces. They need to be larger because of all the equipment that goes in there. And you've got the regular education, all the academic spaces that are needed. So between the two of them, that's part of the challenge. And so that's the argument we're making with the state. And they're pushing back, at various levels. So we'll hopefully in the next few days we'll have this resolved, and at least know where we stand with whether they're going to grant us the space standard waiver. It used to be that the waiver actually went to the Department of Education at one point. I'm told now that it'll go simply to OSCGR, and the decision is made at that level.
Okay.
So at least I know who we're dealing with, and when there's a direct contact, we can plead our case to these individuals.
Rusty, were we looking to do a site visit? I know that was part of the conversation, and we were gonna try to meet, and I think that would be important as part of this discussion, so they can see programmatically what we're doing, and the rich experiences that we're offering to our students, which are critical in the blueprint of this building moving forward. Our goal is not to lose any of these career opportunities or these vocational opportunities that we know moving forward would be a critical piece to this high school.
That's right, and I was not able to get in touch with Kermit, who would
Okay.
do the walkthrough, but I'm hoping that, I don't know if he was, a lot of they're working from home as well.
Sure.
So, it's a matter of who can we connect to.
So that would be a goal, if we could get Kermit to come to the
To come
school
out.
within the next week.
Yes.
We could do the walkthrough and talk about some of the programmatic things that are critical to our curriculum.
That's correct, and so
Yeah.
that's part of what we want to do. I don't want the discussion to end till we've sort of exhausted every
Sure.
avenue available to us. And, I think we'll be able to get something out of it.
Mhm.
And that's the main goal here, is to not just say, okay, that's fine, and give
Yeah.
up, but rather push the envelope a little bit. So I put that in there, if we were to get the 100% space standard waiver. They did mention to me that if we showed some progress to bringing the number down, that would allow them to be a little bit more flexible as well.
Okay.
So, we went from 110 down to 17, so that was a positive step, because when we showed it to them, it was 110,000 square feet, gross square feet. Now we're at 107, so they felt that we were going in the right direction. The covered walkway, it has a cost of $655,000. And I said net cost is roughly $400,000. I have to be, this is something that we've got to talk to the state about, because sometimes they will look at a canopy or a covered area as partial square footage. And I want to emphasize that this is really not, I don't want it to be, because then it would mean it would have a negative impact on our
Sure.
square footage. So if that's the case, I think we would want to really ignore or take that out of the scope here, because it would add cost and then reduce our reimbursements. So if they agree that they're not going to count that as square footage towards the project, then the net cost would be roughly $400,000. And possibly well worth doing that, because we're putting a lot of solar panels on there, so that would actually help. That'd be part of that payback from the energy utilization
Right.
perspective. And then the final cost on the Gable roof is $1.67 million, with a net cost to the town of $1 million rather. So if you would accept all three of these items, we're really looking at a net cost addition of $1,821,500. So that 37 would increase, and of course the gross number would also increase. So that's where we are. We can certainly, look at refining these numbers, but at this point, in the process, that's as far as we've been able to get with the dollars.
Rusty, would you be able to share some of the questions the state's asking you and your kind of responses? Because I think that would be really helpful to the board and for town council members as we move forward with discussions, to kind of see where the dialogue is going.
Right.
And the kind of things that are important to the state, and I think it will give everybody a sense of where this project fits into a this year or next year bucket.
Yeah.
And that's where we really kind of need to move on it, so we need to see what the facts are there.
I will say that they were actually they were sort of pushing us to say, get it in now for the June 30th. Just because if they felt that we would be going into a good window of, and bid environment. For whatever reason they thought that, I don't.
Yeah.
Don't
Well,
quite know.
that's definitely good advice from them then, right?
Right.
Like, we certainly want to take their lead.
I mean, I was concerned that they would be telling us to push it off,
Right.
and they actually did just the opposite during the discussion.
I think it's critical that with Kermit potentially coming in the next week, so that we can have that conversation, that walkthrough, and they can physically, or he can physically see, you know, what we're up against and what we're looking to do moving forward
Yep.
within the confines of square footage of 6,000 square feet. Well, what does that mean? I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you look at potentially losing a program
Yeah.
and the impact with students over time. So I'd really like to emphasize, you know, that meeting sooner than later.
Yeah, and I think that piece needs to be buttoned up,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and in fact, had it not come in late in the day today, and I was running out, I would have,
Right.
you know, and there wasn't just one question, there was like 10 or 12 questions
right.
in there. So I'll definitely share that with you tomorrow. Okay. Actually, let's just go back.
Yeah, this works.
So, again, a side-by-side comparison, and you can see now, you know, the main changes on this are the 107,600 right here, gross square feet that changed from the last time we presented this, and of course, the reimbursement numbers. They felt that the difference between the renovation and the new building was so minimal in terms of overall cost. And if you look at it, it's 36.54 versus 37.34. And if we're able to shave off a few more square feet at the high school, that number can probably be the same. See, the renovation number is not changing because that it is what it is, and we still have the connector, and we still have to do that. They didn't weigh in on it, but I'm not sure if they will be as receptive to keeping the auditorium out of the square footage calculations. They said they would do that for the new building option. They didn't really address it on the renovation options.
Rusty, how many square feet would you have to shave off to make number 2 and number 3 equal?
So right now, the difference is,
About 12,000 square feet?
yeah, it's 5.4, so that's, let's say 800,000. So we took out 2,400 and we were over 1 million, so maybe 1,500 square feet.
I'm looking at the renovated as new as 95,232, right?
No, it's
Or you're
actually,
adding
it's the two numbers combined.
Okay, so you're looking at 95, 105, 115,000
Right.
square feet. So you're looking down 8,000 to get to the 107. But we know with the existing building right now, we have a lot of dead space in that building.
Exactly.
It's non-instructional, it's.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, it's difficult to argue if the dollar points meet at the bottom, right? Like, no one's gonna say renovate is new if a new building costs exactly the same.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if worse comes to worse, if it's possible to shave off enough square footage to make it even.
And keep in
I
mind
mean,
that the
that's
more
just-
you take out,
Yeah.
that whatever you take out is completely ineligible for reimbursement.
Right.
So you get the full value of it out, so you might not even have to take out as much square foot.
Right, so I'm
footage.
just, that's just a possibility, I'm saying, like, if they don't give the waiver, and I'm just trying to think creatively, and hopefully it's like not a huge number, but, I mean, it's so close financially at the bottom, and I realize that the 37 does not include, some of the upgrades or.
Right.
But that's something we can talk about, you know, I mean, at least if we know what direction we're going in and we can push it forward, then we can decide where we are with upgrades, I mean, that's.
I also want to mention that when we look at the reimbursement, for instance, there's about 4 million in what we've called ineligible, 3 million of which is contingency. Now, the way the state sets it up is your contingency is ineligible until expended. So if we were to use that contingency, and that contingency is in the numbers that you see,
Uh-huh.
we would be getting roughly 50% of that back in
Okay.
reimbursement. So your reimbursement would actually be $1 million plus more than what's being reflected.
it.
But based on how the state looks at it at this stage in the process, they don't want us to identify that, because they say, well, what if you spend it on something that's ineligible?
Ineligible.
So,
Okay.
so that's why, so there's really $1 million at least in addition to what's being reflected here, that's a reimbursement number.
Okay, great.
So let's talk about the schedule and next steps. So if you were to move forward June 30th to get your application in, we have to go through the following steps. So we met with the state. That was March 25th. Tonight's meeting is really an update from that meeting with the state. They have recommended going with the new building option. They feel that that's the most prudent direction to go in. And all the three architects on the team have made that statement to me. So that's where we are, and that now it's a decision of the board and the town to pick an option. I put in here community information presentations. I'm not sure how we would do that in
I
this
don't
day
think
and
that's gonna
age.
happen, Rusty. I
Right.
think the meeting that we had that night at NBS would
With all-
constitute that meeting.
Yeah, so, but I had it in there unless there's a way of presenting things in a virtual environment and just letting people know the status of things, although board meetings like this would certainly do that as well.
Sure.
And so then item 5 really is what needs to be done to file the application with the state. You need, the town needs to authorize the Board of Education to submit the grant application. And that's a formal resolution, there's language in there that I forwarded. The formation of a building committee for the project, which I believe you've already done. That's when you form the building committee and authorize schematic design and outline specification. You didn't quite authorize schematic design and outline specifications, but you authorized a facility study of the project. You have enrollment projections. An environmental assessment will need to be done at phase 1. So that's something that we would need to retain an environmental company to do. It's the simplest of all the evaluations. Renovation status would only be required if we were to go in that direction. At this point, I'm assuming we're going in the direction of a new building, so then item G will not be required. If you were to go in that direction, there is more documentation that would be required to go along with the application as well. Roof plan and documentation, we have a lot of this information based on the modeling that we've done. Uniform at cost estimates and worksheets. We have cost estimates. We would have to change them and convert them to a uniformat and Part B worksheet. And then finally, funding approval. Now, if you chose to go to a referendum, let's say in November, you would just have to, there is specific language that they will require that you are going to referendum by such and such date, and that would need to be part of the application if you were to file for just this June 30th. So there's a lot of steps here that need to be completed, and we've got roughly April, May, and June, 3 months to accomplish that. It can be done. It's not out of the question. It's, in fact, I've done it in less time than that, so it's not an insurmountable task at all. So those are the next steps, but the key is getting the boards and council to make the decision and move forward with one of these options.
I think once we get the confirmation on the square footage and how they decide on the waiver, I think that's a piece that we need, and then the Board of Ed can vote on it. Also, if we have the questions ready to give to town council so they can see the question and answers.
Okay.
I'm sure that's information that the town council will want to see. So when we vote on Board of Ed to push it to the town council level, I want to make sure that we have all of our questions answered. So it's nice and tight so that then when they're asking us questions and asking you questions, we can very easily answer them. So in your best guesstimate, how soon will you have the answer to that square footage question?
Well, I'm working with everybody remotely, so I can't,
Yeah, I know, it's
I can't,
different, it's a
it's
little
not
more
like I can
challenging.
have a meeting.
Yeah.
But my goal would be to try to get it resolved this week, if I
Okay.
can. As long as, we can have.
Let's get together
you
at the
know,
high school,
Right.
and the three of us will tour and talk and move
And
forward.
with that in mind, I mean, at the latest, early next week would be my goal.
Okay.
To get this taken care of. Because once that's done, we need to develop educational specifications that then meet that program.
Right.
And that's one of the items in here, which is item D under 5D, with the Board of Ed approving the educational specifications, and what they'll be looking for is your minutes to your, the
Right.
meeting that actually approves the ed spec. So
Mhm.
the two of them are tied together. And
Okay.
that ed spec has to then be submitted to the state as part of their, part of the application process.
Okay.
Then, if you decide to go by June 30th, we have to meet all those criteria, and then the referendum question is something that the town would need to decide. Everything that we've done is based on construction starting next year.
Mhm.
So what I have outlined is, the design and documentation. You need a good 6 to 9 months to get through that process, so that you hit the ground running. Typically, the final funding is approved with the budget, so that happens July 1st. So usually what happens is most communities are all set to, with their bids in hand and the information all ready. Nobody wants to sign a contract until that
Right.
approval has been
Right.
received from the state. So I have here July, construction starts July 15th. Usually you write the agreements and the bid specifications in a way that make the contractors aware that it's all contingent on when the state approves the budget. So that's really the step-by-step process from now all the way through the start of construction. So it's pretty aggressive, but this is a fairly, it's a new project, and it's not that complicated in many ways, and it's a smaller project, so going through and meeting those deadlines is not a concern.
I don't know, can the board hear me? Can you see if they can hear me? Like, are they nodding, or they?
Can you hear Shauna, Cynthia? Yes.
Okay, if anybody on the board has questions, I would ask that they send them to me, and we will compile them, and then we can send them to Scott and Rusty, so that we have a list of our own questions that we might want, since it's very difficult to have a conversation when
Yep.
everybody else is remote, and I wanna make sure that their voices are heard as well. So I
Absolutely.
think that would be a great way, if everybody could have their questions to me by, what's today, Wednesday?
By Monday.
By Monday, that would be great.
I'm going to unmute them just to see if they
Okay.
say anything.
Yeah, for the most part, I can hear the question. Carolyn's having a hard time because I have her Facebook in, so it's not 100% clear.
So what Shauna had asked was that if there are any questions related to the presentation, if they could be sent to her, so that then she could forward them on.
To me, and I would get them to Rusty.
Scott, and Scott will bring them to Rusty, and
That way it's one compilation of questions, and that could be complete, also in the packet that we have prepared for town council, so they know what questions we've asked and had answered as well.
Marcy, did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I'm good.
this is the Facebook.
So
The
it's delayed.
delay.
Okay,
You hearing yourself?
okay.
All right.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, Ronnie asked.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Rusty,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Yeah, thank
You're
you for
welcome.
coming.
That was it. I mean, you're.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
This is the.
So we'll continue with our next meeting point, and
Yeah.
you and I I'll collect questions that you're dealing with the state, and then I'll get them to my board, and then they can start to dissect some of them and work through them.
And I'll forward, some of Michelle's questions are very
Sure.
simple, like,
Yeah.
why do you have so many storage rooms? Or
Right.
what does
Right.
M stand for on the plans? And
Yeah.
it's mechanical, so.
Yeah.
But then I did remember there was one question about, why do you need 6 slab rooms? And so that's program related.
Sure.
And it's like, well, those are science slabs, so. That's where, your input would be valuable.
Mhm, great,
Perfect.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, Rusty.
I'm just gonna wait until Tracy moves the computer so I can see them. We'll move to the budget piece.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, the next part of the meeting, as we move the computer around, we're gonna go to the budget portion status.
Yeah, so today Martha sent a budget out to all the board, about midday
Yes, it was around midday. A financial report was sent to all
of our
the
emails?
board members via email.
So I want you to make sure everybody's checked their email to review the financials. Scott's gonna give us some key points to the financials that were given to us today, but again, if you review them and then you have some questions, if you wanna filter them through me, and I'll get them to Martha, so that way she's not getting 50 different emails from all of us. Scott's gonna give us some.
Don't know.
The financials that were given to us today, but again, if you review them and then you have questions, I will filter them through me and I'll get them to Martha, so that 50 different emails. I'm sorry, I'm hearing echo, and it's me that's echoing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's background noise.
Yeah, and I hear myself, and then I hear myself, and then I hear myself. Seriously. But so anyway, so review the financials. Scott is gonna give us a few key points now to what was released today. But if you can look at it and send questions in by Monday, I will forward them on as well, so we can have our answers. So Scott, can you give us a few, of the key points
Sure.
that were expressed in the financials today?
Under the budget financial report, and Martha is here as well, but she highlights in that second paragraph, the cost savings due to us being on a shutdown, and assuming that this shutdown could potentially be extended past April 20th. Obviously, we're saving on the late buses, our daily substitute, instructional supplies, building usage, a number of other things, food costs. So that obviously is gonna build towards the end of the year, and we're gonna look at creative ways with the state and with the governor on ways of using those monies to hopefully defer costs and expenditures in our budget and line items for next year. So there'll be more information to come regarding that as we move through this. We really don't have a crystal clear date yet. We're waiting. We think within the next week we're gonna get more information. As you know, we are scheduled to return at or around the 20th of April. But I think everyone would be in agreement that that probably is, most likely, is gonna be extended out. Martha, is there anything that you would like to add? Or are there anything, any items that are glaring line item wise, or are we pretty much in decent shape with
Yeah, no,
where we shut down?
we continue to monitor the budget every day, but right now our projection remains positive.
Okay. So if you could not hear Martha, I know she is mic'd, that our projections are pretty close and are on. Obviously, with our shutdown, we are positive in many areas because we're not expending money from those accounts. One of the things that we did discuss of potential savings was the replacement of our copiers and the contractual obligation that we had with our existing company. So they are being phased in over the next 3 days with our tech team, and we should have all of those copiers in the buildings for next week, and we're estimating that will save about $150,000 annually if everything is used as it is currently. So that's really good news. And lastly, we had gone into an agreement with UI, our power supply company for the North Branford side of town. We were in conversations of looking at efficiency models, in our 3 buildings at this side of town. So we have an exciting opportunity if it is approved by the state. Now, it's all timing. If we are able to get into the plan with the state and those monies are not removed, we potentially could do a number of capital items that we had put out for the next budget season, and they are upgrades to lighting, and several other things in the buildings for our management systems, which are quite pricey. That would be a 48-month payout that we would be involved with, but the cost reimbursement would cover any increases in these projects, so it's an exciting opportunity if we're able to get that approved and move along with that. And Martha, is there anything you want to add to that, or?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's it for updates with major items right now that we're looking to potentially get involved with. I know the town was looking at some sites for solar paneling and doing farms and then having those offset a number of buildings in the community, and the school system would fall into that area if it was to come to fruition. That would only help us with these projects with our increased efficiency and then the ability to transfer some of that energy that's trapped with solar paneling. So, are there any questions?
Are there any questions? I just unmuted all of you. No?
Okay.
So we'll move on to graduation date 2020.
Are there any questions? I just unmuted all of you.
What did you say about graduation?
I'm just going to move on to it.
we're
I'm going to
moving to
mute
it.
you all because I think it's easier when you're not getting the feedback from me. So I'm going to mute you, and then I'm going to have to I'm going to give you the ability so someone can.
Can't hear you. You're on.
When she mentioned the graduation.
Okay. I'm going to mute all of you because there's less feedback when I speak. So I'm going into the graduation date of 2020, but I'm going to need somebody to make a motion for me. So one person, Cindy, if you could unmute yourself to make a motion for me, I'll second it and move into discussion. It's going to be a little bit hairy because there's so much feedback, but we'll try to do this the best that we can. So in accordance with the state statute, the North Branford Board of Education may establish a firm graduation date after April 1st of the school year. And as much as the school system has experienced 2 cancellation days, this moves graduation to Thursday, June 11th, 2020. Can I have a motion?
So before I make the motion, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Is this are we going to be, is it going to be an in-person graduation, or at this point, because everything's so fluid and changing, it's just going to be who knows what, but the graduation date for everybody to receive a diploma is June 11th?
So we did receive information from the State Department of Ed to start having conversations about alternatives if this shutdown was to extend past graduation dates. So whatever the decision is or whatever happens, this is a firm date that you're voting on. We obviously would not be collecting to do something. If we were able to do something at a later date, I would strongly encourage the board to support us, if safe and cleared to do, have some semblance of a commencement exercise to honor our seniors.
Okay, so then I just need to be, what am I making the motion for, Shauna, for the date, the graduation date to be June?
Yeah, to establish the 2020 North Branford High School graduation date for Thursday, June 11th, 2020.
So is it gonna be the end of the school year?
Yes, that will.
June 11th?
That will.
But we're also having that be the graduation date?
We don't know if we'll have a commencement exercise. We'll have fulfilled the.
I can't hear you very clearly, I'm sorry.
So the June 11th date will satisfy the requirement for the 181 days. So that will establish us completing our obligation. That does not mean that we will have a ceremony on June 11th. If it's not safe and it's not allowed at that time, we would look to an alternative date to hold a commencement exercise for our students.
But we're looking at this, Cindy, is not necessarily a commencement exercise. This is when our students graduate and
This is
can
when
move to
they're
the next
eligible.
level.
Okay.
So it's when all their classes are done.
So, Shauna, can you type in the chat what you want me to make the motion to be? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Do you want to just photo it and send it?
Cindy, I'm gonna send it to you over.
Motion is for the 2020 North Branford High School graduation date for Thursday, June 11th, 2020.
Is that Marcy?
I second. Is there any discussion?
Is that Marcy?
No, it was Carolyn.
Carolyn?
No. Kara, they heard you.
It's Carolyn. I got you, Carolyn. All in favor? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, Mary, it was an all in favor aye.
I didn't hear Beth.
She's muted. Beth, unmute yourself. Nope, you're still muted.
Am I unmuted?
You are, Beth.
You're good.
Okay, aye.
All right,
So that was all.
that was all. Okay. Can we do visitors in press?
She did.
Okay, okay.
No, she said
We're good,
aye.
we're good, we got it. All
Aye.
right.
Again?
I just need to do a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.
That you
I
second?
second,
Oh.
of course I did.
Can I say something first?
Yes, wait, yes,
I
sorry.
just wanted to commend, I only had to do with the Tutucket teachers and the Jerome Harrison teachers, getting the Google and all the other iReady and all the things that the kids are working on. My grandkids are working on it. I've heard from other parents too. There's been some glitches, but it's getting better, and I really like to put a thumbs up to the teachers for all they worked on.
Beth, thank you so much, and I would be remiss. I do want to acknowledge Tracy Wooten and the administrative team, all of the administrators, our coaches, our lead teachers in the buildings, our secretaries, our custodial staff, everyone involved that's been a part of this team effort. It's been amazing to see what's occurred in a very short period of time and how willing everyone was to get on board. And it's not going to be perfect, we know that. We are going to honor the April vacation, and we're going to kind of regroup during that time to take a look at how we're doing things and make some changes if we need to. But we've had great feedback, and it's a true credit to those who are running the schools and who are involved, and with Tracy working with everyone. So a lot of work is going on behind the scenes, and it really has been amazing to sit back and watch it unfold. These are very trying times. It's a lot of pressure at home for parents with childcare and trying to get them to sit. I have 4, so I understand it. Sit down and do their work and stay on task, because it's that mentality that school's off, we want to go play. And they've really done a wonderful job, so I commend them. And thank you.
agree.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Now I'll take the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I second. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, you too.
Stay well.
Yeah, you stay well. Thank you.